The first question here comes from Johnson Revidad, and he asks, is there something that you really want to do but is really hesitant in doing so? Tell a little background story behind it if you want. Thank you. As far as something I'm hesitant about, I would say planning a real vacation. I've not had a real vacation. I mean, actually traveling for a couple of days, out of state. It's been a very long time now since I've done that. So yeah, I really want to plan a vacation. I'd like to have a real vacation this year, but I'm just trying to pin down exactly where I want to go to. I would really like to go back to Las Vegas. I think that'd be awesome, but at the same time, I kind of want to go down to Orlando, Florida. But when if I'm going to go to Orlando, Florida, I got to decide which park or parks I'm going to be able to get to, which attractions I'm going to be able to check out, because you can only do so much, in a certain amount of time. So I think that's why I'm really hesitant, is because regardless of where I go, I know my time is going to be limited, and I just got to plan it out very thoroughly. So yeah, I'm just kind of trying to figure that out basically, but hopefully before this year ends, I will have another real vacation, because it is way overdue. Next question here comes from Corey Collectibles, and Corey Collectibles actually did the intro on this video, as well as a new icon for me. I do appreciate that. But his question here is, it says, do you think there is an area of collectibles that is lacking? Meaning, do you think there is still something that could come out that is completely different than what's out? I think absolutely. There's a lot of creative people out there. I'm seeing a lot of, figures and statues and things that are coming out that are very unique. And I think, eventually there's going to be things that go beyond just figures and statues. And, people will figure out other things that are really attractive to people and things that do take off. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of very talented people out there, a lot of creative people out there. So I expect to see some things that are very unique in the future. I also think that in terms of just the marketplace, I feel like there needs to be more kind of mid-tier collectibles. With Funko Pops, of course, the price point is low, and there's some other collectibles in that range. And then you have some things that are very pricey, especially once you get into statues. So there's not a whole lot of that mid-tier in terms of pricing, and I think there could be some more sort of in that mid-tier, like the $40 to $50 or so range. I think there really could be some more things out there that are somewhat high quality, but still reasonable within price, sort of like the gallery statues. I think we need more options like that when it comes to collectibles. Conquest Figs asks, how do you feel on Funko's recent use of remolds and repaints, like getting a flocked, glow in the dark, or in metallic variants within weeks, months of the original pop coming out? Conquest Figs, I'm not sure how long you've been collecting, but I think for people that have been collecting pops for years, we know this is really nothing new. This has been going on quite a bit. I know from early on, like even if you think back to the original Batman mold, that has been reused so many times. But I think what it comes down to, though, for one thing, I think a lot of collectible companies do this. They reuse parts, they reuse molds as a way to save money. The big difference with Funko, though, is that they're redoing the exact same characters, but they're just doing variations on them, which can be frustrating for people. I remember a couple years back with San Diego Comic-Con, Funko had just put out the common cat dog. Then they turned around and did a con exclusive of a flocked cat dog, and some people definitely were not happy about that. But it's just part of the collecting game, when it comes to Funko Pops. And I feel like, with certain figures, you can kind of get an idea that they're probably going to do a variant. There are certain characters, if it seems like a character is very likely to be flocked, it's probably going to be. If it seems very likely that it could have a glow in the dark variant, it's probably going to get a glow variant, and so on. So, I mean, you could sometimes just wait and see what happens. But if you go ahead and you get that common and then a variant comes along, just don't be surprised. I think people know Funko by now. It is kind of a gamble. It can be frustrating, but like I said, it just comes along with the territory. But again, this is nothing new for Funko, and I feel like people have got to voice their opinions with their wallets. If you don't like all these constant variants of figures, then don't buy them. If you think there's too much chrome, if you think there's too much metallic in general, if you think there's too much gold paint, whatever it may be, then just don't buy it, and of course the company will be forced to change their ways. Next question here comes from the pen and pad, Avengers or Justice League, and why? I think this is a question that gets kicked around a lot, and first of all, I want to be very clear. I like both. I really, there's a lot I like about the Avengers. There's a lot I like about Justice League. But if I had to choose one, and I don't tend to like this mentality, but if I absolutely had to choose one, I lean towards Justice League, just because I feel like Justice League has a better team dynamic. When it comes to the Avengers, I feel like it's these powerhouses that are constantly bumping heads, and they don't always quite get along, and it's a lot of egos and things like that. That's kind of consistent within, what you see with the Avengers. Of course, there's some close relationships as well. But yeah, when I think about the Avengers, I really think about these, titans that are kind of on their own, and they just, sometimes they have to work together. Justice League, some people might say it's the same way, but I just feel like the relationships run deeper. The friendship with Batman and Superman, which gets very complex because, of course, they can be enemies at times as well. Wonder Woman has an interesting dynamic with both of them. The trilogy altogether has some interesting dynamics, and then when you start bringing in other characters, it just builds upon that. So yeah, I just really like the team dynamic with the Justice League. I know some people feel like they're kind of outdated in a way, I guess, but I don't know, it's just something about that team that I really like. I also like the fact that, with both teams, they tend to take on these world-ending challenges, but I feel like Justice League, a lot of their rogues that they take on they're not always these villains that are out to rule the world. A lot of them are just trying to get by, basically, but they've chosen the wrong way to get by, so it's just interesting for me to check out the Justice League, especially Justice League the animated series. Absolutely loved it. I think that's one of the best things ever done with comic book heroes. Lady Draco 87 and Droob's Vids, they ask questions here that are somewhat related. So Lady Draco is basically asking, do you think Funko is losing its appeal because there's a show of sales on Funko products, that they have decreased? Then Droob's Vids says here, as a longtime collector, seeing the evolution of Funko as a brand, do you think they've oversaturated their own market? Now, I know that some people will look at the sales of Funko around the holidays and they say, oh, there's a major dip there. Funko is such a successful company that I think even on a bad day, they're still outselling a lot of other companies out there, so they can afford to have some bad days. It's the same thing like when you think about Nintendo. Nintendo can have a dip in sales, but they're still okay, in the long run. So I think even when Funko is struggling some, they're not really struggling necessarily. They're still doing better than a lot of other companies out there. Also, you got to remember, especially around the holidays, people may not be buying as many Funko Pops because they're focused on things, buying things for their friends and family. I know that's the way it was for me. I didn't buy much around that time. And also Funko doesn't tend to have major releases around that time. I guess you could say like their Cyber Monday thing, but going on into December, I don't think they really have a lot of major releases. Funko doesn't tend to do that. And I know that because the last couple of years, I don't do as much with Funko news in December because there just isn't as much to share. There aren't as many major releases. So I think you are going to see a dip in sales around that time. As far as the oversaturation thing is concerned, I know a lot of people feel like Funko is basically shooting themselves in the foot by putting out so many pop figures. But I really wish collectors would look at this. For one thing, people are always saying that they want more from Funko. They want to see this, they want to see that. And then when the company listens to fans and they put it out, then you have people that turn around and say the company's doing too much. You can't really work both ways. If you want to see more, then they're going to put out more. And as long as it sells, they're going to make it. So even though some people may feel like there's too much out there, Funko is trying to appeal to a lot of different tastes. They're trying to put a lot of things out there for fans. And yes, there are going to be some shelf warmers here and there. And as a matter of fact, I really think that Funko maybe should limit the supply with certain lines that they, if they feel like that they might not do so well, try to gauge that, maybe make some things a little bit more limited. But again, when it comes down to it, they're putting out a lot, they're cranking out a lot because the fans are constantly asking for more. So to me, it's not fair to constantly ask for more from the company and then say they're doing too much at the same time. And I'm not saying that about these individuals, that ask these questions here. I'm just saying in general, if collectors are going to keep asking for more, then don't turn around and say the company is failing because they're doing too much. Next, this question here comes from Poison Taunt XD, I think is how they say, or just Poison Taunted. Not sure exactly how this name is pronounced here, but the question is, if you had the option to bring one Funko item back, what would it be? I would say rock candy figures. It kind of seems like Funko may have, go ahead and let that line go at this point. But I actually like the rock candy figures, and the main thing I liked about them is they were giving more light to female heroes, just female characters in general. They did, start to do some male characters as well, and I wasn't so crazy about that. I actually like the idea of having this line that is very much devoted to female characters, especially female heroes. So I would actually like to see them return, and I think there are some properties out there that would look really cool with rock candy figures. Like Birds of Prey just came out. I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, but some of the designs are cool. So, it would have been nice to see some rock candy figures of the Birds of Prey. Of course, we got Wonder Woman 84 on the way. Would nice to, be nice to see some rock candy figures for that as well, and some other things. But I just don't think it's happening. It seems like they're kind of done with the rock candy figures. Things come and go, but I really feel like that's a product that does deserve another shot. Next up here from Shad Amer, or again, some of these names are kind of tough, so forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it there. But the question here says, if you could pick from any of the following to go to, which one would you go to and why? Funko HQ in Seattle, Funko Hollywood, San Diego Comic-Con, ECCC, NYCC, LACC, or any other con. And he goes on to say basically here, if cost is an issue, then assume your expenses would be paid for. For me, I would get rid of the big cons right away as options, just because they're so crowded. And it's just like a big inconvenience to go to a major convention like that. I think it's more of a big inconvenience than anything. I'm sure people, have some fun with them too. But I mean, even going to like some of the local conventions here in the Carolinas, they can be kind of crowded and just not the greatest time, So yeah, the big conventions, I would dismiss those right away. For me, then it comes down to either Funko HQ in Seattle or Funko Hollywood. I would have to go with Funko Hollywood. From the images I've seen, I think it just looks amazing. I think both of these locations look amazing, but I just lean towards Funko Hollywood. They have some really nice setups in there, with the giant pops and everything. It just looks really cool. And then, of course, it's in Hollywood as well, so I'm sure, there's some other things that I could check out in that area. But yeah, I would have to go with Funko Hollywood. I think it's a very cool looking location, and I really hope that, there's a major Funko location on the East Coast in the near future, but I know the company can only do so much at one time, but I think that will happen eventually. The next question here, this comes from Nola Boy 504. He says, how do you feel about once a month or every 2 months having a live stream with other YouTubers talking about pops that just released or anything in general? Now, I have seen some other YouTubers work this out, and it's something I have thought about in the past, but just to be real, I've done things that were collaborative on my channel, and it seems like they're never long running because I just run into the issue where schedules don't quite match up with other individuals. And then to be real, there are some other YouTubers that are just kind of inconsistent with YouTube. Sometimes they're cranking out videos, sometimes they completely disappear. So as far as consistency, it takes a lot of consistency, to really collaborate with somebody. So it's a difficult thing to do. Also, you have to look at it this way too, that you can't just put two YouTubers together, even if they're cool with each other. You can't always just put two YouTubers together and expect to get an interesting conversation out of it. Sometimes that just doesn't happen. I mean, people may be doing the live streams, doesn't mean it's always truly entertaining though. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing to work out a schedule with somebody and to make sure that you consistently are doing some interesting content as well. It is a tough thing to do, and that's why it really takes off when it does happen, because it is a rare thing to find. And I'm going to wrap it up here with 2 more questions that are somewhat related to each other. So Johnny Wolf here, he says, what made you want to start collecting Funko Pops and other collectible vinyls? Also, what helps you deal with anxiety? Thank you for helping my collection grow, and you're welcome for that, Johnny. And then Justin Duffin here says, do you find it stressful collecting all the information about Pops and their release dates? If so, what do you do to treat this stress? So both of these questions here, of course, relate to stress and anxiety, which is something that I've dealt with and I still deal with at times. And I actually did get into collecting and got into YouTube to kind of deal with my anxiety, so I don't always just focus on the negative things in my life. I want to have something to kind of keep myself busy, to keep myself entertained, and it has helped a lot. But at the same time, though, of course, there is negativity on YouTube. There is some negativity within the collecting community, and I really find the best way to deal with it is just to block people out. Now, I know some people definitely don't like that, and the main people that don't like that are the people that are being negative, though, because not only are they rude and they want to start arguments and things like that, they expect people to sit back and just take it at the same time. You know, if you block them or you say something in response, they say you're being too sensitive, and yet they feel like they could talk all the trash they want to. So no, I'm not gonna, you know, get into that nonsense. I just block people. And that's the best way I feel to deal with the stress. And I wish more people would do that on social media, not just YouTube, in general. You know, if you have people that are being rude to you and things like that, or, you know, they don't even know how to disagree without being rude, then block them. You don't have to deal with them. Now, I will say this, you know, in my day-to-day life, dealing with my family, of course, dealing with close friends, dealing with co-workers, I'm a very open-minded person. I try to work things out with them. But when it comes to YouTube, just social media, like, no, it's, you know, you don't have to deal with people that are rude and that stress you out. So I feel like just block them and keep it moving. You know, this is my time with YouTube to relax, to have some fun. And if anybody's trying to step on that, they got to go. That's really just what it comes down to. So I find that's the best way to deal with it, and just focus on the positivity within doing this as well. That definitely helps a lot, because there has been a lot of positivity. I've made a lot of friends out of it. I do get a lot of support. The channel is steadily growing, and I feel like it's growing the right way, because even with me blocking out negative people, does not matter. I still feel like the numbers are growing with a community that is positive. So I'm happy about that. And yeah, that's what it really comes down to.